3 years ago, I was kicked out with one suitcase and $200. Now I wake up in a $30 million mansion by the sea. People call it success. But some mornings I still feel homeless. The ocean view is stunning, endless. But it never quiets his voice in my head. The one that said, "You'll fail. You're wasting your life." It still echoes through these glass walls. I have everything I once prayed for, but peace. That's a different kind of wealth, and that I had to earn the hard way. You think this is a victory story? Maybe. But first, let me show you what it costs to build your life from the ashes of rejection. My father didn't hit, he didn't drink, he used words, sharper than any belt. He had a way of making me feel small without ever raising his voice. I could get a 98 on a test and he'd ask, "What happened to the other 2 points?" It was never enough, because I was never what he wanted. He wanted strong, obedient. I was curious, quiet. He called that weakness, said I lived in dreams, not reality. Mom would just smile tightly, eyes tired. She'd whisper, "He means well." But meaning well doesn't soften the blow, especially when it comes every single day. And so I stopped showing him things I was proud of. Stopped asking for his praise, stopped expecting him to see me at all. It was easier that way, until one night, it wasn't. It happened on my 16th birthday. I had just finished my first real app, a simple study tool, flashcards, note, organizing, clean design. I built it from scratch, alone. A few hundred students were already using it. I was proud. Maybe finally he'd see me. I showed him after dinner. He looked for 2 seconds, then went back to cutting his steak. "Is this why your chemistry grade dropped to an A-? That was it. No questions, no interest. Mom smiled politely. My brother said, "Cool," without looking. Then the doorbell rang. Jason's football trophy had arrived. Suddenly the night belonged to him. Photos, phone calls, cake forgotten until midnight. I sat there, hands in my lap, throat burning. Not from anger, from knowing deep down that nothing I did would ever be enough. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but inside me something had cracked. I wasn't angry, I was done. Done waiting for his approval. Done believing his silence meant I wasn't good enough. Done letting him decide what mattered. I whispered a promise to myself, barely louder than a breath. One day I'll build something so real. Even he can't ignore it. Not for praise, not for revenge, just to prove I existed, that I had worth, even if no one clapped for it. From that day on, I worked, babysitting, tutoring, coding for local businesses. Every dollar went into my escape fund. I didn't tell anyone, especially not him. Dreams are quieter when you're protecting them. Grandma June was the only one who saw me, really saw me. She had soft hands and sharp eyes, and she never lowered her voice to speak truth. For my 17th birthday, she gave me a refurbished laptop. Not new, not fancy, but to me it was a spaceship. Freedom. Escape. My father was furious, said it would ruin my focus, called it a distraction. But Grandma stood her ground. The girl has a mind of her own, Edward, and thank God for that. That laptop became my sanctuary. While others watched TV or went to parties, I taught myself code line by line, night after night. HTML, then JavaScript, then Python. The logic made sense. It was clean, predictable, safe. Before she left that night, she leaned close. "Don't let him shrink your fire." And I didn't. Not then, not ever. Home was a negotiation. Every smile, every meal, every dollar had strings. My father never hit. But his approval, always conditional. When college acceptances arrived, I felt a flicker of hope. UCLA, full scholarship, computer science. It felt like freedom wrapped in an envelope. Far enough to breathe. Far enough to begin. But he held the letter like it was a threat. Tech support, that's your dream. Blackwood's lead companies, they don't fix printers. His voice wasn't angry, it was cold. I stood my ground barely. I don't want to manage, I want to build. His face didn't move, just the words, "You're ruining your future." That was the moment I realized. He never saw me as mine, only his reflection. And I didn't match. Los Angeles was loud, fast, unfamiliar, but it was mine. No one checked where I went. No one asked why tech, not business. I shared a dorm with strangers, studied all day, worked nights at the campus IT desk, freelanced on weekends, websites, bug fixes, anything that paid. My body ached, my eyes burned, but for the first time, I felt alive. Exhausted, yes, but free. No lectures at dinner, no cold silence, just space to become. My roommate Nina was pure sunlight. She laughed loud, believed big. She said things like, "You're not the problem, he is." No one had ever said that before, not out loud. And when she said it, something cracked open inside me again, but softer this time. Nina and I shared more than a cramped apartment. We shared ramen, secondhand furniture, and a hunger to build something that mattered. One night over takeout, it clicked. Restaurants waste food, students need cheap meals. She said it between bites. What if we connect them real-time deals? We called it Meal Link. I coded between classes and shifts. She pitched to every small restaurant in walking distance. We poured ourselves into it. No funding, just belief. The app launched. Some buzz, some downloads. But not enough. Restaurants found it confusing. Students forgot to check it. 4 months later, we shut it down. No press, no tears, just silence and disappointment. "I failed us," I whispered. Nina smiled. "No, you failed forward." That phrase stayed with me longer than the app ever did. After MealLink, I didn't collapse. I studied harder, refined my skills, listened more, assumed less. Failure gave me questions I never would have asked. Why didn't users stay? Why didn't restaurants trust us? Why didn't I speak up when I saw things going wrong? Senior year came fast. I added a business minor for leverage, not approval. My favorite professor, Dr. Hayes, noticed my work. He saw potential and grit. He introduced me to a small cybersecurity firm. No pay, long hours, but real work, real stakes. I said yes without blinking. By then, I had a new idea brewing, simplified security for small businesses. Most couldn't afford protection. I wanted to change that. I called it Shield Key. At first, just a folder on my desktop, but soon it became my reason to keep going. Graduation came with honors top of my class. I had offers lined up. Then the recession hit. Companies froze hiring, salaries vanished. With no backup, I moved back to Denver, back to the same house. The same quiet dinners, the same sharp looks across the table. Dad acted like nothing had changed. Curfews, chores, expectations. As if my degree didn't count, as if I was 16 again. I bit my tongue, saved money, told myself it was temporary, but every day there I felt smaller, less real. Jason visited often with his wife. He nodded, smirked, stayed silent. Success had made him louder in Dad's eyes. My silence only made me invisible again. But at night I coded, quietly. Shield Key was still alive, and so was I. Dinner was the same script. Jason's job wins, Heather's promotions. Then his gaze would shift to me. Apps don't pay bills. I stayed calm, told him the tech sector was recovering, told him I had early interest in my project. He scoffed. Every time. You're answering support calls. That's not innovation, that's survival. I told him about Shield Key, how it simplified encryption, how small businesses needed it. He barely looked up. Most owners can't even reset their Wi-Fi. They won't use it. But I kept building. Late nights, cheap coffee, no applause, it didn't matter. I wasn't building it for him anymore. Still, the weight of his words sank deep, not as screams, but like slow poison, invisible but working. It was a Tuesday. I came home late from work. A bug in Shield Key had kept me in the office. I texted Mom I'd missed dinner. He was waiting, arms crossed, the room already cold before I stepped in. Your mother kept dinner warm for an hour. No, hello? Just judgment. Was it your real job or that imaginary company? I swallowed hard. Tried to stay respectful. I'm building something real. With investors. Investors! He laughed. What kind of grown man bets on fantasy? Jason and Heather walked in mid-argument. Tension climbed. Eyes everywhere. I finally said it. I'm not Jason. I never was. His voice dropped. Steady. Final. Then go. And don't come back. And just like that, the last thread snapped. I didn't scream, didn't cry in front of him. I just nodded, walked upstairs, packed what I could, clothes, laptop, flash drive, a folder with Shield keynotes, birth certificate, Grandma June's last letter. That was it. Mom stood in the hallway shaking. He doesn't mean it, she whispered. But he did, and we both knew it. Where will you go? I'll figure it out. I hugged her tight, memorized her perfume, didn't look back. Jason said nothing. Heather looked like she might cry. Dad stayed in his chair, didn't flinch when the door closed behind me. I stood on the porch, one suitcase, $230, no plan, no home, but more freedom than I'd ever had. I made it 6 blocks. Then the engine gave out. The check engine light had been on for weeks. I'd hoped it would hold. It didn't. I sat in that dead car, hazard lights blinking, street empty, suitcase on the seat beside me, and laughed through tears. I couldn't stop. This was it, my big leap into adulthood. Freedom wrapped in failure. No home, no job, no engine. I texted Nina. Just 3 words. I need help. She replied in seconds, booked me a flight to LA that night. I spent the night in a motel near the airport. Thin sheets, flickering light, counting every dollar I had left. 105. It was the lowest night of my life, and the first step toward everything that came next. Los Angeles didn't welcome me. It simply didn't care. No one knew who I was, and that was oddly comforting. Nina met me at the airport. She hugged me tight. No questions. You're staying with me, she said. No arguments. Her apartment was tiny, barely room for one, now holding 2. I slept on an air mattress. It deflated a little more each night, but I kept my things neat. Didn't complain, didn't want to feel like a burden. Just until I get paid, I promised. Shut up and eat your ramen, she smiled. You're not a guest. You're my friend. By day, I sent job applications. By night, I reopened Shield Key. The dream hadn't died. It had just landed somewhere new. A week later, I got the call. Dr. Hayes had referred me to a small cybersecurity firm. They needed someone fast. No interview, just a start date. The pay was modest, but it was enough to breathe. To stop counting every dollar before sleeping. To stay. I moved into a shared apartment. 1 room, 3 roommates, a mattress on the floor, a desk I found on the sidewalk. Melissa was a paralegal, Brandon a trainer. Dina worked nights at a diner. We shared dish soap and bad Wi-Fi. Made it work. I set a strict budget, half to bills, a quarter to loans. The rest went into savings, my startup fund. No lattes, no takeout, no distractions. Shield Key lived in my weekends and late nights, quietly growing, waiting for its moment. 6 months in, I almost didn't go. A tech meetup downtown, free pizza. I was tired, behind on work. But Nina pushed me out the door. The room buzzed with strangers, startups, students, recruiters. I found a quiet corner and started talking about Shield Key. Most nodded politely. Then one guy stayed, listened. His name was Caleb, UX designer, sharp eyes, kind smile. Your tech is strong, he said. But your interface, it's built for developers, not humans. He pulled out his tablet, sketched a cleaner layout, simpler, friendlier. It made instant sense. We grabbed coffee the next day, then another. He understood the gap I couldn't see and filled it with clarity. We should build this together, I said. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was building alone. Caleb said yes without hesitation. 50-50 split, no contracts, just trust. We worked in cafes, libraries, living rooms, wherever the Wi-Fi held and the noise was low. I handled the back-end encryption security protocols. He designed the interface, clear, human intuitive. We argued, revised, tested, then did it all again. We built our pitch deck late at night, practiced in front of mirrors, filmed mock demos with cracked phone screens. Every detail mattered. Then came the investor emails, dozens. Most never replied. The few who did said no, too early, too niche. Come back when you have traction. Each rejection cut deep, but Caleb stayed steady. We just haven't found the right yes yet. So we kept building, because Shield Key wasn't a maybe to us. It was the thing we needed to exist. Her name was Joanne Marks, an angel investor with a sharp mind and a calm voice. She'd built and sold 2 cybersecurity companies. And she understood the problem we were solving. She listened, really listened, asked hard questions, then leaned back and said, "This is smart and needed." 3 follow-up calls, 1 technical deep dive. Then came the offer, $150,000 for 15% equity. It wasn't a fortune. But to us, it felt like oxygen. Enough to hire help, enough to launch. Caleb and I sat in silence after signing. Then he whispered, "We're really doing this." And I whispered back, "Finally." That night, I walked into my tiny room. Same mattress, same light flickering overhead. But something was different. For the first time, I felt like a founder. Shield Key went live quietly. No ads, no hype, just a few small businesses trusting us with their fear. What if we mess this up? We answered every call, walked them through every screen. Caleb redid the interface twice. I fixed bugs in pajamas at 2 a.m. Then one message came in. "I thought we were too small to matter. You proved me wrong." That was our first real win. Bigger than any investor pitch, we built slow, auto updates, cleaner onboarding, and something rare happened. They stayed. By month 6, we had 300 customers, no media coverage, no press kit, just quiet growth. One thank you at a time. Still small, still fragile. But this time, it wasn't just working. It was working for someone. Shield Key was growing. Not viral, but steady. We crossed 1,000 customers, then 2,000. One day, a tech blogger emailed, said he'd heard about us from a bakery owner. He asked for a demo. We didn't expect much. A week later, his review went live. Powerful security wrapped in a sweater your grandma could wear. It was funny, warm, and it went everywhere. Bigger outlets picked it up. We were called a quiet disruptor. Our inbox flooded. So did our signups. Suddenly, people who once said no started emailing back. VCs, journalists, competitors. And yet, the one person I wanted to notice said nothing, didn't call, didn't ask, didn't care. My father had gone silent, not out of support, but something colder, pride too stiff to bend. The offers came fast. Acquisition talks, early buyouts, numbers I'd once dreamed of, $2 million, $5 million. One firm wanted full control within 90 days. They praised our traction, our growth, our team. But not our purpose, not our customers, not the single mom running payroll at midnight, or the retired veteran managing his auto shop alone. Caleb looked at me across a cafe table. "We built this for people like them." And I nodded. "We're not done yet." We turned them all down, with shaky hands but steady hearts. Some called us foolish. Maybe we were, but I'd been owned once before, by a voice that made me shrink. I wouldn't sell just to be told again, "Now stay in line." Months passed. Growth doubled. We hit 10,000 users, then 15,000. And suddenly we weren't chasing calls anymore. They chased us. Privacy Guard reached out quietly. Big firm, trusted, known for acquiring without gutting. They asked for a meeting, not a pitch. Their rep said one thing that stopped me cold. "How do you want this to keep helping people after you leave? Not how fast we could scale. Not what our burn rate was." They offered $75 million. Majority cash, no layoffs. No product changes. Caleb and I would retain 10% each in advisory roles. We didn't smile right away, just looked at each other. Then slowly we nodded. We signed the next week. I walked out holding a folder, not a trophy. No champagne, just breath, and a quiet, steady kind of peace. The deal closed on a Tuesday. By Friday, I was in Malibu, a modern glass house on a cliff, the kind you only see in magazines. I stood barefoot in the living room, floor-to-ceiling windows, endless blue stretching past the horizon. Everything gleamed. I should have felt triumphant, liberated. But all I felt was Quiet. Not peace, not joy, just silence, no music, no voices, just the echo of old words. You'll never make it. You're wasting your life. I had erased his doubts, surpassed his limits, but the house didn't clap and the ocean didn't speak. Success is loud to the world, but often it whispers to the one who earned it, and sometimes it whispers nothing at all. 6 months passed before I booked the flight. Denver felt smaller the moment I landed, like it had shrunk or maybe I had grown. Either way, I didn't belong to it anymore. I didn't tell anyone I was coming, just showed up. Same driveway, same steps, same door I'd once walked out of unwanted. Mom opened it, eyes wide, tears then a smile. She held me too long, and I let her. Dad was in the kitchen, reading, calm as ever. He looked up, no surprise, just a nod. You look, well, no apology, no pride, just a fact delivered like weather. I nodded back. We sat in silence for a while. No fights, no flashbacks, just two people in the same room, and miles of unsaid things between them. He asked about the company, in vague terms like it was homework he hadn't read. I answered plainly, no inflation, no need to impress. I wasn't selling anything anymore. So what now, he asked. Like my future still required his approval. I looked at him, really looked. He hadn't changed, but I had. Now I live my life. Simple, steady, mine. He blinked. No reaction. As if that truth didn't fit in his world. I wanted to ask why he couldn't say he was proud. Why he never could. But the question no longer held power. It was just air. Before I left, he said, "You were always stubborn." And I smiled. That's how I made it. Then I walked out quietly, but this time with my head high. A month later, Mom visited Malibu. First time on a plane in 10 years. She brought banana bread, wrapped in foil, still warm. She stepped into the house slowly, eyes wide quiet, hands brushing the marble counter like it might vanish. "It's beautiful," she whispered. I showed her the guest room. Ocean view, fresh flowers. She stood at the window blinking hard. "You did all this." "We did," I said. Because without her quiet strength, the silent meals, the hidden hugs, I wouldn't have made it through. She found one of Grandma June's photos on my shelf, smiled. "She'd have loved this view," she said, and for once the silence between us felt full, not heavy. That night we cooked together. No instructions, no tension, just two women, finally breathing the same air. It was unexpected, his text. Short, careful, in town. Coffee, I said yes. We met at a quiet spot near the marina. No crowd, no distractions. He looked older, tired but lighter. Less armor. He didn't mention the past. Didn't explain his silence that night I left. Just said, "I've been following your work," and for once I believed him. Turns out he'd left Dad's company last year, started his own thing, eco-friendly, builds small homes. Not flashy, but solid. He seemed real. "You made something from nothing," he said. "I always had a ladder. You had a cliff." I didn't cry, but something in me softened. Not forgiveness, just understanding. Before we left, he added, "You changed the map for all of us," and in his voice, no envy, just respect. With Shield Key behind me, I had time, resources, but most of all, clarity. I knew what it felt like to be unseen, so I started a fund. Small at first, quiet, grants for young women in tech, especially those told they weren't the type. We offered laptops, mentorship, a place to ask questions without shame, a place to not feel small. One girl, 17, sent a note. "My dad says I can't code." Too emotional. I knew that wound too well. I wrote back, "Then code with everything you feel. That's your edge." She did. Built an app to help kids manage anxiety. Watching her pitch it, confident, steady, I saw a younger me but with softer landings and fewer closed doors. The fun grew faster than I expected. Not because of press, but because the stories were everywhere, girls with fire locked in quiet rooms. We added workshops, Brought in mentors, women who'd walked the hard road, not perfect resumes, just lived experience like mine. Caleb joined as advisor. Nina handled outreach. What started as healing became a movement. One afternoon, a girl asked, "Do you ever wish you'd kept Shield Key?" I smiled. No, I kept what mattered, because now the success wasn't mine alone. It rippled into classrooms, kitchens, code labs, into girls who'd been told no and chose anyway. I didn't need applause anymore, or permission, just that quiet knowing the door I stayed open for someone else. It came in a letter. Postmarked Denver, mom's handwriting, inside 2 words in bold ink, "He's gone." No details, no drama, just silence in a white envelope, and beneath it a copy of Grandma June's recipe card. Banana bread, faded, smudged, he'd kept it. I sat on the kitchen floor, ocean view behind me, hands trembling over a piece of paper that suddenly weighed more than any trophy I'd ever held. He never said sorry, never said he was proud. But this was something. Grief didn't crash in. It seeped through memories I thought I'd buried, through words he never gave but maybe almost meant. I didn't cry for the father I had. I cried for the one I once wished he'd be. I flew back for the service. Small church, gray sky. Jason gave the eulogy, said all the right things. I sat in the second row, didn't speak, didn't need to. The air was already full of things we never said. Afterward, I walked the old neighborhood, past the park, the corner store, the cracked sidewalks. Every turn held a version of me younger, quieter, still hoping. I stopped in front of the house. Didn't go in, just stood there, long enough to let go. He built a house out of rules. I built one out of breath, out of code kindness and all the things he called soft. Turns out they held stronger. I whispered a quiet goodbye. Not to him, but to the part of me that still waited for his voice to change. Back in Malibu, I woke early. No alarm, just stillness. The ocean moved without urgency, like it knew I no longer needed to chase anything. I brewed coffee, opened the windows, let the salt air wrap around me, soft as memory, steady as breath. No emails, no meetings, just a quiet mind, a rare kind of wealth. I sat with a notebook, not to plan, not to build, just to write what I felt, not what I feared, not what I fought. There was no fire to put out, no voice to prove wrong. Only the sound of my own pulse finally moving at its own pace. For the first time, I wasn't surviving. I wasn't climbing. I was here. Fully. Finally. It didn't come with applause or magazine covers. No viral posts, no standing ovation, just ordinary days that didn't hurt. Morning walks without a racing mind. Lunches that didn't involve multitasking. Time to call mom just because. Time to sit still and mean it. People still asked about Shield Key, asked what I'd build next. I told them nothing urgent, nothing loud. Because now, success wasn't speed. It was space. Not proving I belonged, but knowing I never needed permission. I found joy in small things. Letters from girls in the program. Fresh banana bread in the oven. A note from Caleb that just said, "Still proud." No spotlight, no rush. Just the slow, quiet truth. I made it and I'm still here. Sometimes, late at night, I see her, 16 backpack, 2 heavy eyes full of questions, still waiting for someone to say you matter. She sits at the edge of my bed, barefoot, quiet, holding dreams with chipped edges but refusing to drop them. I don't tell her it gets easy, because it doesn't. I tell her she was right to keep going, right to hold the fire even when it burned. I show her the letters, the faces of girls who code now because she didn't quit. Didn't vanish. She nods small and sure, doesn't smile but she understands. Then fades back into memory, leaving something lighter in her place. She never needed saving, just someone to walk ahead and clear the path. Exactly what I became. There was a time I thought impact meant headlines. That legacy was built in boardrooms, sealed in valuations, spoken loud in rooms filled with suits. But real legacy, it's quieter. It's in the girl who emailed, "Your story made me stay in school." It's in the bakery owner who said, "Your app saved my shop during lockdown." Or in the intern who whispered, "I didn't think people like us could belong in tech." No statue, no press release, just a ripple, passed hand to hand quietly. Now I live slower, cook more, read often, say no to things that cost peace even if they offer power. Because I've learned legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you plant that grows long after you're gone. It's not just mine anymore. Friends come, stay. The guest room holds laughter. The kitchen stories folded into shared meals. Nina visits often. Still loud, still radiant. We sit on the deck with wine, talking like the ramen days never ended. Caleb brings his daughter sometimes. She's 7. Asks why the ocean moves. I tell her, because it can. She nods like it makes perfect sense. Mom sends recipes. Still handwritten, still smudged. Sometimes I bake her banana bread just to feel the warmth of home in a different shape. The silence here isn't empty anymore. It's chosen. It holds music memory and space for people who see me fully. No performance, no shrinking, just presence and room to breathe. I still hear his voice sometimes. Not loud, not cruel, just distant. An old echo in a new room. He visits in dreams, not with anger, but unfinished sentences, pauses where apologies might have lived. I don't wake up angry anymore, just thoughtful. I light a candle, write a line, let it pass. Healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant I stopped needing closure from him. I gave it to myself in pieces over years quietly. There's still a photo of him in a drawer, not out of guilt, but respect for the chapter that shaped the spine of my story. I don't hate him. I don't miss him. I carry him lightly, like a stone that taught me how to climb. There was a time I wanted him to understand, to see the value in soft things, in patience, in empathy, in building slow. But that time has passed. Now, I don't explain why I mentor, why I turn down big offers, why I choose slow mornings over fast headlines, the life I live today. He wouldn't have recognized it as success. Too quiet, too human, too rooted in things he once called weak. But I've stopped translating my joy into a language built on judgment. Some people only hear power in volume. I've found strength in silence. The more I live, the less I need to prove. And the more I honor the girl who kept going anyway. I didn't win because I built a company, or sold it, or bought a house with ocean views. That's not the real story. I won because I stayed soft, when it would have been easier to harden, because I forgave without being asked, because I chose purpose over applause. I survived the silence, the rooms where I felt invisible, the words meant to shrink me, and I turned them into bridges, not walls. This life I live, it's stitched from small defiant choices. To stay, to try, to love, even when no one clapped. If you're listening now and you feel unseen, know this. Your quiet persistence is already building something. Not for them, not even for the world, but for you. And that's enough to begin. If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a feeling, a quiet corner of your own journey, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment below, and if you want more stories like this, soft but strong, hit subscribe. Sometimes healing starts with a story that feels just a little like yours.